Welcome back. Now, the death toll from Monday's earthquake in southern Turkey has risen to 6, with close to 300 people injured. The 6.4 magnitude rumble was felt in neighboring Syria and as far away as Egypt. A second magnitude, a 5.8 earthquake, which struck several minutes later, was centered in the town of Samandag. Now, 2 weeks ago, a catastrophic twin earthquake left more than 45,000 people dead, as well as millions homeless in Syria and Turkey. Nearly 400,000 apartments were destroyed and many people are still missing. Well, Turkey and Syria have been hit hard by a third earthquake in just 2 weeks, claiming more lives. 6 more people have now been killed and hundreds more injured in the latest incident. The initial quakes on the 6th of March killed over 40,000, and rescue missions have now turned into recovery operations. The World Health Organization is warning of a humanitarian crisis as many are forced to live in tented camps. So let's get more on the situation on the ground with the Al-Imadad Foundation's Suleiman Abubakar, who joins me right now to give us this update. Suleiman, thank you so much for your time. Devastating to hear that, as of course efforts are being made to try and salvage the situation, save as many lives as possible, that another quake has hit. What are the details on the ground? What can you tell us?
Yes, certainly. A very good morning to you and everybody back home, and thank you for having me. Absolutely devastating news here from northern Syria and Turkey in the aftermath of the very first 2 earthquakes which had occurred 2 weeks ago. We have to bear in mind that this population is still reeling from that. They've not gone far at all in as far as recovery from that is concerned. Rescue efforts have just now turned to recovery. Right up to very, very recently, we were still seeing miracle moments, people being carried out from the rubble, miraculously still alive. The famous incident of a little baby thought to be born in the aftermath of the earthquake with her umbilical cord still attached. Sadly, her mother had passed away and she was the only survivor of her family. And her name, she now has a name. Her name is Aya, which translates in the local language to miracle. But these miracle moments are now fewer and further apart. And as you've rightly mentioned, rescue efforts have now turned to recovery. And while we see on the ground heavy earth-moving equipment still plowing and digging through mountains of rubble, trying to recover people, we see that this devastating third earthquake has just added and compounded the already existing problems. If you walk through the streets, people still awaiting their loved ones. Not all bodies have been retrieved at this time. So right besides existing what was at one time skyscrapers, obviously it's now all been pancaked into a mountain of rubble. Right besides those, you'd find camps of people still mourning and still grieving the loss of their loved ones that they still await. And we can all understand that there is a unique kind of torture in the unknown with this and the tremendous amount of mental trauma and psychological trauma that these people have had to face. Just to give you an indication of how expansive it is, that the area affected, the earthquake zone, is said to be greater than the size of certain mid-sized countries like the Netherlands, for example. So it's affecting a great amount of population, this tremendous amount of psychological trauma and mental health. This place is known as the most volatile region, the most volatile fault lines. So there's constant rolling aftershocks. And every time these aftershocks come and go, you just hear cries of agony, cries of grief reverberating from people who's really been mentally traumatized. So this devastating third earthquake adds to this and really compounds this. It's also bringing issues of logistics in as far as relief aid is concerned. We do know that in the very beginning of the crisis, because of the sheer scale of the disaster and fractured infrastructure, it was very difficult for aid workers to get to the absolute front line. This was further expounded by the persistence of sleet and snow and inclement weather. We've seen that the logistics did get a little bit better afterwards, and unfortunately this third devastation now does set relief work a little bit back once again.
Yeah, and just before I let you go, then briefly, if you may, Suleiman, I mean, early on, as you mentioned, with relief efforts, it was quite difficult to get into those, hit areas, those quake-hit areas. And I can imagine the urgency with which medication was needed, assistance, expertise was needed. Now, even more, an urgent matter exacerbated by this third quake. What do people need right now? This, of course, priority being their loved ones, being found, but also what's of need at this stage?
So certainly, I think we are now moving away from the critical emergency intervention, and we've gone into the second phase. Just yesterday, the day before as well, we were working with local doctors here. They've echoed the same sentiments that the critical intervention at the moment would be medical support and long-term housing for people who are currently living in inclement weather without any heating. Temperatures here plummeting below freezing point. That's the temperature right now while the sun is out. Many of the hospitals, normal functional hospitals, the structural integrity of these hospitals have been compromised. They've tried to salvage as much equipment as they could. We visited a field hospital. People are coming in, patients with crush injuries and fractured bones, and they do not have an X-ray machine, obviously because that could not be removed from the hospital. So besides victims of the devastation, anybody who needs medical attention now in most places will have to visit temporary makeshift field hospitals. So medical intervention, psychological support for people who've seen their loved ones crushed, beneath their very eyes. Sometimes a person is the only survivor of his entire family. We've seen little children and even adults wailing uncontrollably. And with these aftershocks, you just see people coming out onto the street, looking dazed in the face. And it really does break your heart to see the psychological toll that this has taken upon people. Going on from there, we've been talking to doctors on the ground, and we're trying to get feedback, real-time feedback and reconnaissance on what interventions we can provide. There will certainly be a great need for prosthetics with the amount of amputations that have taken place as people were being tended to. Long-term, certainly housing.
Right.
People right now living in very unsanitary conditions, cramped conditions, open sewage. They've also explained, medical personnel here have explained that they've seen a spike in cholera, respiratory illnesses,
Right.
and the likes. They're off because of cramped conditions. So long-term, proper housing to get these people back to living as near as possible a normal life to what they had in the past.
Oh, that's all the time I had with you, and quite devastating indeed. Suleiman, thank you so much for speaking to us. Unfortunately, wish it was under different circumstances, but appreciating all the work that you're doing on the ground as much as you can, understanding that rescue efforts have now turned to recovery, the devastation of the earthquake, and now increasing the number of those who have died, those misplaced, those displaced, those needing urgent medical attention, as well as housing and hygienic intervention. All our thanks to Al Imadat Foundation's project coordinator, Suleiman Abubakar.